Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
You bet.
Oh, great. I'm so glad to hear your voice. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Hour number 1 of USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Kyle's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. So good to be with you, Kyle. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about my grandmother this morning before the broadcast. And I was thinking that when I was growing up, I heard my grandmother say, and my uncles say, and my dad say, watch that sugar. Watch how much sugar you eat because you can get diabetes. And, just watch it. And what they really meant was avoid candy, avoid sugar, or you may get diabetes. And that was the thought back in the 1950s. So can we spend this segment talking about diabetes, what it is, type 1 versus type 2? How do you get diabetes? And can you get it by eating too much sugar?
Well, the answer to that one is a quickie yes. In children, in general, type 1 diabetes appears to come on from an acute illness that might be a virus that attacks the pancreas. So type 1 is a totally different beast, if you will. It wipes out the pancreas' ability to make insulin. Whereas type 2 usually does not come on before age 34 or later and is 99% of the time associated with excess weight, body weight, and eating too much sugar and junk food in general. It is an epidemic, practically, at this point, because 1/3 of all Americans are just plain fat. Fat means they're obese, officially, medically obese. That means a body mass index of 40 or more pounds over their ideal weight. Those people are particularly prone to type 2 diabetes. But even being 25 to 29 body mass index, that is anywhere between 10 pounds overweight and 39 pounds overweight, certainly increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. It is, and it often begins to cause problems before the diagnosis of diabetes is made. I was taught 61 years ago in medical school that you can actually develop diabetic neuropathy that usually starts in the feet with tingling and odd sensations and then numbness and pain. And that can start up to 10 years before frank diabetes is diagnosable.
Dr. Shealy, if you were in on a public place, let's say a mall, and you happen to be walking around in a mall, and there were 100 people in front of you or 100 people around you, and you could freeze time for a few minutes, would you be able to just pick out, just by standing where you are, within 50 feet of all these 100 people, would you be able to just say that one, that one, that one, not that one, that one, not that one has diabetes? Would you be able to do that with a degree of certainty just from a distance of 50 feet?
Pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I have made the diagnosis of diabetes and several scores of people whose physicians had missed it because they did not do the right blood test. There's only one way today to diagnose diabetes. That's to get something called a hemoglobin A1C. If it's above 5.8, you are at least pre-diabetic. It has to be 6.4 officially to be considered diabetic, but I've often seen people with 5.9, 6.0, and they already have diabetic neuropathy.
So, can you explain what diabetic neuropathy is? What would be the sensations, the feelings that a person would have with diabetic neuropathy? Well, they usually start with slight, but not that noticeable loss of sensation. But then they begin to have pain. And that pain is sort of a burning, sharp pain. Most of the time it begins in the toes or some part of the sole of the foot. By the time I see them, they have no deep tendon reflexes. You know, you should ordinarily, when I tap the tendon, you should have about a 2+ muscle jerk. They almost always have significant loss of vibratory sensation. That seems to go before touch and pain sensation itself. But soon, all sensations can go, and still they hurt. When you say loss of vibratory sensation, I remember medical examinations back in the 50s, 1950s, where a medical doctor would have a couple instruments, a little hammer-like device with a triangular rubber end on it to test reflexes. Another one was a tuning fork. When you say vibratory, are you talking about that tuning fork type test?
I am indeed talking about the tuning fork. It's the sensory test I do first on all people because it is more sensitive to being lost than touch or pain.
Dr. Shealy, I can tell you...
Most physicians use an actual needle to test for pain. I gave that up many, many years ago. I use my fingernails and pinch the skin because I don't draw blood that way.
Dr. Shealy, I can tell you that it's been a long, long, long time since I've seen that triangular rubber-ended hammer-shaped device and a tuning fork in a medical doctor's office. Other than being at your clinic, I can't tell you the last time I've seen one because I haven't in decades. I don't see them being used.
Well, I think you're right.
Simple instruments.
The average physician is afraid of the nervous system. They literally don't want to go there because they don't understand it.
Okay. And I got to tell you that the last time I've seen a tuning fork that I could handle was in elementary school. Seriously, I haven't seen one since. It's something that has disappeared from view. I'll bet you for just about every one of us listening to this broadcast, unless a person owns one and has it stored away somewhere, we haven't seen one. We really haven't. And I don't understand, Dr. Shealy. A couple things have disappeared or almost disappeared. Tongue depressors, I think. I would not want to be in the tongue depressor business because I don't think there are very many customers anymore for them. We don't do that either in medical exams, do we? Well, I'm not talking about you, Dr. Shealy. I'm not talking about Dr. Sergey Sorin, your medical partner.
I don't usually use a tongue depressor because if you ask a person to say ah, the tongue will depress itself.
Okay. Right. Okay. What about the scope to look down a person's throat when they say ah? I don't see that happening very often either.
Right. And that, of course, is how you examine the tonsils and the back of the throat.
Right. And that little cone-shaped illuminating device, I don't know what that's called, a lumiscope or something,
that's
where you look at a
person.
Otoscope. Mm-hmm.
That's looking in the ears.
Right. What do you see when you look in a person's ears?
Well, you see the canal, so you can see if there's a rash or if there's wax that occludes your view. And most of what you're looking for is the eardrum. The eardrum is a sort of thick membrane, but you can see through it and see the little ossicles, the little bones behind the eardrum that allow us to hear.
Well, when I think back of the the medical examinations that I received in the 1950s. It was stick out your tongue. Okay, let me look in your ears. The medical doctor would feel my glands in my throat, my neck, look in my eyes, look at my eyelids, look at my fingernails. I don't think that happens anymore.
No, the 7-minute office visit doesn't allow you to do those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. And so, Dr. Shealy, what was the doctor looking for when he was looking at my eyes? What was he looking for?
When you look in the eyes, you actually see the retina. It's actually the entire surface of the back of your eye, behind all the water in your eye. There's the nerve. You can see the optic nerve itself. You see the blood vessels on it. You can see the macula, which is the most discrete part of your vision. You look for damage to any of those. It's an excellent way to make a diagnosis of an advancing brain tumor.
And we miss all that.
Yep. Well, it reminds me, Vince, I should send you this thing I just sent to my usual coterie of friends that I forward dozens a day to. But this one is the future. And it's predicting. It starts off with the fact that, until the end of the last century almost, Kodak was the place for film.
Yes.
And it went bankrupt 18 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. And then it's saying that in the future, babies of today will not actually ever have to have a driver's license, that something like Uber is going to take over driving, and it goes on and on and on about the changes of the future. Well, some of the changes of technology, in my opinion, are not good.
I read an article about that last night, about you, if you want to go from point A to point B, you'll summon something like Uber, and either a helicopter will show up or a driverless vehicle. We'll be right back with Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, Sharon, USA Preparedness Instructor, is calling in from Montana. Welcome, Sharon.
Hey, good morning. I have a question concerning diabetes. Our dog, our dog is a pet, and he's getting cataracts really bad, and I asked a veterinarian friend of ours about it, and he asked him if he had diabetes, and I said, I have no idea. And he said frequently these kind of dogs have cataracts and diabetes, and I was wondering, are they connected?
Oh, yes. Everything in the body is adversely affected by diabetes, but there is an increased risk of cataracts, yes.
Okay. I had never even thought of that. I mean, I know you can have, like, neuropathy and a lot of other trouble, but I had never heard that cataracts could be connected with it. So I was just going to ask you about that.
Now, if the cataract is early, it can be dissolved a majority of the time by putting 1 drop of United States Pharmacopoeia castor oil in the eye each night.
Yeah, my friend tried that, and it actually worked.
Yeah, it does work. I've got many, many people who've done that.
Yeah, I've actually suggested it to quite a few people, actually, too. But I was just curious. That's my only question, so I'll let you guys go. Thank you.
Great,
Sharon,
thank you.
Sharon, before you go, thank you for the care package. That was so kind of you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thought you might want to try it out. All right.
well, thank you.
Take care. Thanks. All right, bye-bye.
Always great questions from Sharon. Dr. Shealy, she and her husband are both instructors, and they've listened to us for quite some time. USA Prepares, and I like them so well, and they do so many interesting things that I've invited them to be instructors. And Sharon teaches a class here about canning and living off the grid, and she and her husband live off the grid and have for years, and they're just so handy and so clever, and they share their designs and accomplishments with us, and it's wonderful. So she's got her eyes wide open, and that was a very interesting observation that she had and shared with us. Dr. Shealy, is there anything that we should do to test our animals for, like our dogs, for diabetes? Because that's something that we haven't discussed here on the air at all.
It's extremely rare in dogs unless they're very fat.
Okay.
Actually, people pay more attention to their dog's weight and their cat's weight than they do to their own weight.
Mm-hmm.
I, in general, don't think it's going to be, unless the dog begins to lose weight, then that's an extreme thing. A rare complication of diabetes could be that.
When we talked about you standing, looking at a mall at 100 different people, and at 50 feet away, what would you visually look for to determine in your mind if you thought that person had diabetes? What would the signs that you would visually see?
Well, obviously, excess weight, especially belly weight, would be at the top of the list.
Belly weight. Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess it's just sort of the general appearance. There's just no question that your intuition kicks in when you see somebody who has a certain look, and I don't think I can describe that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about when you sit down and it's more obvious with ladies than men, but you see that their foot is swelling over their shoes, so it's almost like, how did you ever get that foot in that shoe?
Well, that's not necessarily diabetes. That suggests more likely congestive heart failure with backup of fluid. But of course, it is more common in people with diabetes to have congestive heart failure also.
Okay. So, all right. What does a person do if that person says, I think based on what I heard, I probably have diabetic neuropathy. I have, this burning pain, and, I've lost some sensation of feeling in my toes and my feet and the soles of my feet. What does that person do? When we come back, could you give us your prescription for doing better, living better, maybe a course of action? Should a person say, it sounds like I might have that. We'll be right back. We're talking about diabetes with Dr. Norman Shealy. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, and if you'd like to go to his website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. That's where you can sign up for the free newsletter, the same one that I receive in my email in basket, and no charge, no salesman call. And also, if you'd like to peruse some of the offerings like magnesium lotion and magnesium spray and some of the vitamins, mineral supplements, and the bliss oils and the books, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about diabetes, and we're talking about what is your prescription? What does a person do who experiences diabetic neuropathy, the weight gain, the lack of sensation of feeling in the toes or the sole of the foot? What does that person do?
Well, it's certainly a warning sign that one should not ignore. The earlier you treat it, the more likely it can be brought totally under control. There is no medical treatment that will work well. Most of the time, people, when they go in to see a regular physician with diabetic neuropathy, they've already got, significant pain. And the drugs that are used for it suck, as most drugs do. But if we get it before it's too bad, we can actually absolutely reverse it. Now, if it's already, pretty numb, we may only get a 50% recovery, but even so, we've got an 80% chance of reducing the pain significantly and improving the sensation with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, PEMF.
Okay. And when you talk about the PEMF, that is something that you have developed.
Well, thanks to you, who introduced Lou Cassidy to me. Lou brought me his first model of it, and then I made some suggestions about the best optimal frequencies to use, which are those that optimize the chakras. And we have been exquisitely pleased. He's actually working on 3 other electronic devices for us right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, just as a side topic, I was on the phone with senior instructor Bert Bertonis in California. He's a patent holder, and he is a designer of electromagnetic frequency type devices, communications devices, and he's a consultant for some of the big companies, some of the largest companies in the world. He helps them when they can't figure things out. And he and I were talking about the scalar energy project that you're working on last night. And so I asked him about this, and he said that he's certainly interested. And he has the equipment on his bench right now that will test between 100 cycles per second, or 100 hertz, and 20 gigahertz. So it's a pretty wide spectrum of frequencies that he can test to help figure out what actually is going on with these scalar energy fields, if you will. So that's a possibility, if you'd like.
Interestingly, according to every physicist I've talked with, you can't measure it with electromagnetic equipment. Every one of them does that. And that is, to me, the most confounding and difficult aspect of the entire business. Claude Swanson, an outstanding physicist, came down and visited me Wednesday of last week. And he's going to work on that also. But according to everything that's published, you can't measure it because it doesn't go up and down. It's a straight line energy instead of an up and down. You know, we think about electricity in 60 cycles and things like that. But scalar doesn't do that. It's just a linear longitudinal wave.
Absolutely fascinating. And, I had a discussion with Bert Bertonis many years ago. We were stomping around this area of Missouri that was claimed to be a UFO hotspot. And the discussion went something like this. He thought, okay, what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll bring some spectrum analyzers, and we'll measure the frequencies and whatever these unidentified objects are using. We'll see how they communicate. And I kind of scratched my head and I looked at him and I said, not to be cantankerous, I said to him, what makes you think they communicate? How about if they just know? So one thought was maybe these things are scouts. And these balls of lights come down, and they just check us out, and they report back to the homeland or the mothership or whatever it might be, what we're doing down here. So they're just doing a little bit of research on us. And I said, well, why do we think they actually communicate the way we do? Maybe they'd laugh at us, or the equivalent of laugh at us, if they thought that they had to communicate rather than just know. The entity, whatever it might be, all of it might just know. So, very good point about the linear aspects of scalar energy. It's interesting. It's interesting, and it's confounding. It's confusing, and it's an enigma, right?
The adrenomedullin, of course, is what we studied recently. But there's another way we're going to test it once Lou's device is made. Chief Cloudpiler does dark field microscopy of the blood, and that's something I have done research on 20 years ago, although I don't, have the clinical experience of doing it. But he, on a couple of occasions, took blood samples and put the blood into the scalar room for 20 minutes and then checked the blood again and saw marked improvement on live blood. And so what we're going to do is test 10 people with live blood analysis when Lou's scalar device is made to see that it works just as well as we expect.
Dr. Shealy, have you been, since you've been embarking on this scalar technology project, have you been approached by governments to say, hey, listen, we'd love to help you, we'd love to throw money at you, we'd love to, maybe find out what you're doing and, come work with us, and we'll be glad to help you. But you got to tell us what you're doing. Have they done that yet?
No, I'm happy to say I have not been approached by a government agency because I wouldn't trust them. I would trust the Russians before I trust our own government. I'm being facetious, of course, but I don't trust a single person in Washington, D.C.
The reason I'm mentioning this is I was at a convention, a satellite communications convention in 1980, and Al Gore, yes, the Al Gore, showed up at our booth, and we had unveiled some pretty spectacular technology in satellite communications equipment. We had done some inventing, and he was very interested in what we were doing, and he was very interested in encouraging us to be part of funding a lobby group called SPACE, Society for Private and Commercial Earth Stations. And I believe that he had a multi-pronged reason for doing that. One is he wanted to be on the inside track and know what the movers and players were doing who were inventing technology that was very sophisticated and leading edge, and actually bleeding edge with a B. That's number one. Number two, and so he could funnel that information to whomever he wanted for whatever reasons he wanted, probably for financial gain. Number two, he wanted to share that with his government friends so they could see what was going on. And number three, he could be part of this lobby group receiving funds. So a lot of reasons why I think he was interested in, and I'd invite him to come on at any time, and we'll talk about that meeting that we had, Al Gore and I and a couple of my business partners. There were two of them. So my two business partners, I and Al Gore, were there. So there's four of us in total. But I remember that pretty well. He was dressed way better than we were, and we were dressed in three-piece suits at the time. We were dressed in our absolute finest, and he dwarfed us with his finest or his everyday suits. Bottom line is, that's why I asked, if you had been approached, because I've seen how that happens firsthand. I was there back in 1980 in Washington at this convention.
You mentioned a name that it would be at the top of my list of people I don't trust.
Yeah, right. Well, that's why that's exactly why I'm sharing this. I want to make sure that it's it's clear what I'm saying. That and I saw the fallout. I saw what happened. I saw a guy who was. We were in a satellite television publication. I and my business partners were in this a photograph of us, and there was an article about us, and also about a guy who was involved in another business called Echo Star, and that became the premier satellite television small dish company. And the article, he was invited to join SPACE, and so were we. And he joined SPACE, and we said, "Are you kidding? $25,000 to support this lobby group? Are you kidding? We can hardly afford the ketchup that goes with a McDonald's hamburger at the time, and the ketchup was free." So Vinny says, "No way, we're not doing that. That's crazy." Well, I guess in retrospect, it was crazy not to do it. If we could have begged or borrowed that $25,000, maybe we would have, been this, multi-billion-dollar company in the satellite communications business, because we actually built the technology. We weren't just purveyors of other people's technology. We designed it, invented it, built it, hand soldered it. I mean, we were the guys that made it, and so we knew how it worked. But we were blown away by the big guys, because we were not willing to play ball and go along with the system, and that's why I asked. That's why I asked, because I literally saw it firsthand and how it operates.
Well, there are over 40 physicians, holistic physicians, working on a cancer cure who've been murdered in the last year and a half.
Sounds like something that, it sounds like a dangerous occupation. And why would the American Cancer Society want a cure for cancer? It'd ruin the business, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Just like how Exxon would not like energy from the sun or any place else.
Yeah, or 200 mile per gallon fuel injection. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, class. NormShealy.com, NormShealy. preparedness.com. Dr. Shealy, you were talking about there's this visual image that you can see when a person has diabetes. And I was wondering, I was at a store yesterday at a supermarket, and there were these two women, a little overweight, and they were blocking the entire aisle, and they seemed absolutely, they were seniors, they were white hairs, and they were totally oblivious to the fact that they had stopped in the middle of the aisle and they were chatting for about a minute or so, totally unaware that anyone else wanted to get through that aisle. I've noticed that is increasing at an increasing rate in supermarkets, that people just are totally oblivious to things around them. Movement is a little slower on these people that I've noticed, and I have a feeling that at one time in their lives they were able to pay more attention to their surroundings than they are now. Are these some of the signs that you're talking about, or could this be something different?
Well, that certainly could be part of it, but they also could be having early brain loss, which could be, which is increased, of course, also in diabetes. But as a matter of fact, at 1 o'clock today, I'm reviewing done today MRI on the brain of a woman that I suspect we're going to sell wasting of the brain. She's concerned about a brain tumor. I'm concerned that she's got Alzheimer's or some other wasting disease.
When you talk about wasting of the brain, Dr. Shealy, what does that mean in medical terms? What is actually happening? Is the brain tissue dying?
It is actually dying and becomes somewhat scarred.
Okay. And what causes that?
Well, any number of things. Multiple small strokes can do that, but it's that's not as common as just Alzheimer's, dementia, et cetera, where the brain literally is shrinking.
Is this partially due to blood flow or lack of blood flow?
Partially that, but I think more often than not it's related to two things. Number one is proper nutrition. You know, in today's world, Vince, did you know that 75% of rain across the country now has Roundup in it?
Yeah.
Your cows are getting, and your pastures are getting Roundup on them.
And there's nothing I can do to fix it. Absolutely nothing.
You can do. I mean, somehow somebody needs to take a contract on Satan.
Yeah, Blunt, right? From he's the guy who has helped Satan get.
Well, I have a trusted Blunt from the beginning. I wouldn't give him a drink of water.
No, I wouldn't either. By the way, I met him, Senator Blunt, from the state of Missouri. I happened to be in Springfield, Missouri, and I was invited to go to the airport. Dr. Shealy, you won't believe this, seriously. And he and the head of the NRA, LaPierre, I believe his name is, was there. And they flew in on a private jet. And there were about 20 of us who were invited to attend this little meeting in the hangar of the airport. And so the plane landed, and we're all waiting to see these celebrities, and they showed up, and I was quite unimpressed. But I was also outraged at what happened next. When the meeting was over, and it was a very short presentation, it was just, hi, here we are, and so glad to see you, thanks so much, see you. It was kind of like that. Well, when they were ready to leave, the jet was brought to within a couple hundred feet of the hangar. I mean, it was too far to walk, maybe 400 feet. So they brought the jet over so it'd be, more comfortable and less. And that's permanently in my memory, seeing that, bringing the plane over to the hangar because it was too far for those two guys to walk. Or maybe it appeared to be too far to walk. Or maybe they were in a hurry and that extra 200 feet of walking would delay them too much. But, Satan, we're talking about Blunt from Missouri. He received funds from Satan, and now the whole world is suffering. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, we talked about Roy Blunt. And so I mentioned that I met him, Senator Roy Blunt. I met him at a hangar at an airport in Springfield, Missouri. So I looked up Roy Blunt. And just want to share this with you. Pretty awful. So he's received some contributions from organizations. 111,000. I'm rounding to make it easy for radio. $111,000 from the Crawford Group, CRAWFORD. So who are they? They are an influence peddling organization, lobby group. Elliott Management, 95,000 from them. They are an influence peddling organization as well. Monsanto, he received $74,000 from them. Goldman Sachs, $64,000 from them. Blackstone Group. Oh, Blackstone. Interesting bunch of collection of organizations that seem to support his efforts in selling us out. So here we have it. So for as little as $74,000, you can poison the planet with Roundup. Doesn't take much to sell your soul. And if you get a chance, take a look at an image of Roy Blunt. It does not look like someone I'd want to be friends with, just from his physical appearance. It sounds like I'm being very mean, picking on his facial features. Well, I'm sorry, but he's not a friend that I'd want to have. That is absolutely for sure. And I got a chance to see him close up. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about diabetes, and so what do we do? How do we live better? Do we avoid all sugar? Avoid sugar at all costs? Avoid complex carbohydrates? Avoid pasta? Not only because of the gluten, but yeah.
Well, the number one is gluten and wheat. Even though it's raining down on everything else, wheat is the triple dose product. And so I have not eaten wheat for 12 years now. And that includes pasta. The nice thing about pasta is, by the way, of all the substitutes for bread products, rice pasta tastes, there's no taste in pasta. It's what you put on the pasta that you taste.
Right.
And so rice pasta is certainly just as good as wheat pasta.
Okay.
But the bread alternatives are not nearly as easy. You can get gluten-free bread, but most of it tastes awful. But sugar, yes. In other words, I don't think you're going to get harmed in the average person eating a teaspoon or two of sugar a day. The average American consumes about 45 teaspoons a day. Now, there's some people getting 90 teaspoons because they get my share.
Yeah.
Again, sugar was pushed by something that at times is just as bad as Monsanto. Harvard University, for many years, Fred Astaire was a pimp for the sugar industry, and he promoted the idea that sugar was a food. Sugar is the first artificial food. It has removed from it vitamins, minerals, and fiber. All that's left is sugar, which is poison. So we should avoid sugar as much as possible. Honey is a pretty good substitute. Again, I wouldn't want to eat 45 teaspoons a day, but I think 4 or 5 teaspoons of honey are not likely to hurt anybody, except maybe a severe diabetic. As far as complex carbohydrates in general, they're pretty okay. I wouldn't want to make them a 50% or more of my intake, but Irish potatoes are fair. Sweet potatoes are superb. Of all the starchy vegetables, they're among the best, but all the others are pretty good. I mean, carrots are, to some extent, a starchy vegetable. Rutabagas are one of my favorites. They're an excellent starchy vegetable, etc. In general, in my opinion, 80% of your food should be in the vegetable fruit kingdom, and that includes nuts and seeds and all that vegetable kingdom. 20% can be meat and dairy and eggs.
So if a person has diabetes, cut out sugar at all costs. Avoid the candy bars and read the labels of anything that has high fructose corn syrup and other sugars, right?
Right.
Is that the plan? Okay. And then as far as gluten, that'd be the breads and the crackers and the pastas and so forth. And that, I'll tell you what, that's a big portion of our food consumption. It is because it's easy to grow grain, wheat. It's easy to process it. It's easy to extrude it. It's easy to store it. It's easy to preserve it. And heck, it's inexpensive compared to, by mass, compared to other foods like meat and fish. So it's really difficult to eliminate wheat. I mean, I know it is. And that means that you're going to have to spend more time in the produce section of the supermarket if you're going to be buying food. There's no question about it. But it can be done. And while you're doing that, Dr. Shealy, aren't we losing weight by spending more time in the produce aisle?
Absolutely. Again, when you eat an excess of carbohydrates, you burn the carbohydrates and store the fat.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons that the Broder-Barnes diet, which long preceded the Atkins diet, was so successful. On the Broder-Barnes diet, you could have, well, this was before bread was poison, you could have 2 slices of bread a day and 1 small serving of fruit. Everything else was meat and vegetable. You do lose weight on that.
So, Dr. Shealy, it used to be that bread was okay in moderation. What happened? What happened between 1950 and 2017? What happened to bread?
Well, number one, of course, white bread. Even my grandfather, who was not the world's best person in the world, but even my grandfather would not eat white bread. He called it junk, because you have removed from white bread the fiber especially, but actually you've removed all of the vitamins and minerals and put a few back in. So white bread has never been wholesome, if you will. Wholesome is unwholesome. Whole wheat bread was wonderful, and mixed grains of all kinds can make bread wonderful, but the commercial bread now it's loaded with bromide, which is not a needed mineral. It's a poison to the brain. So again, I don't go near bread. Now, if I want, I do keep on hand some truly excellent 7-grain gluten-free bread from Canyon Bakery in Colorado. It tastes good, and so I keep it frozen for people who can't live without bread.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dr. Shealy, when I lived in Virginia, I wanted to buy some wheat, and I called a farmer's cooperative. It was a really large one. Called them up, and I said, do you sell 50-pound bags of wheat? And they said, do you want it treated or untreated? And I said, help me understand what that means. They said, well,
How thick is it?
Let me tell you what the difference is. The difference is extra protein in the untreated. And what that really means is, treated means they spray it with insecticide so that it grows fewer bugs than the untreated. Seriously. That's what they told me. And I said, tell you what, never mind. So I didn't buy any. But what they were saying is, yeah, we've got it. We've got both kinds. The kind that's treated that will have a little more staying power before the bugs start eating it. That's the treated kind. And the untreated, which is, boy, you better eat it quickly. As a matter of fact, you should have gotten here yesterday because they're already starting to eat it. Meaning the bugs. So that's what I learned about wheat. And interesting. So that's another problem. So, Dr. Shealy, when I was in elementary school, we've never talked about this. We had a gym teacher, and he used to talk about white socks. Wear white socks. White socks. If you're gonna, in gym, you change your socks, and if you don't have white socks on, you will when you're in gym. You can't wear any other color. They've got to be white, white, white. And he talked about the dye that was used in the black socks, for example. Coal, C-O-A-L, tar, dye that was used to make some other color of socks black. Dr. Shealy, is there anything that we need to be concerned about with wearing socks that are not white? Are we transferring anything into our skin that, heck, we're not even thinking about that? Our feet perspire inside our shoes or sneakers or whatever we're wearing. Is there a concern that you have about that?
I have spent 84 and a half years wearing black, in case the other colors, socks. I almost never worn white socks. I think it's nonsense.
Okay, and I'm glad you said that, because it's kind of a relief to me, because I wear black socks. And typically what I do is when they're on sale, I will buy, or Mrs. Finelli will buy for me, a bunch of black socks. And they'll be like the gold-toed ones, because they seem to last a lot longer than any other sock. So all of my socks are black, and they almost all of them have these gold toes. And what's really nice about them, when the socks end up going to sock heaven, wherever that is, I don't know where sock heaven is, but socks seem to disappear. So if I lose one, it's okay, because I've got, several other pairs that match the one sock that disappeared. So I'm still okay, and I can lose like 5 or 6 of them, and I don't know where they go. I really don't. But over the years, they go to sock heaven, and I can't find them. But I'm still okay, because I have fewer pairs, and sometimes I have one more than a pair or one less than a pair. But they still match. But I was concerned about that, and thanks for sharing that. So it's okay to wear black socks, class. We'll be right back. Yeah, I just got off the phone with Matt of the Tax Defense Group. I was I heard their commercial, and I was interested in what they have to say and how their organization operates. So he's going to call me back. He may come on the air with us and tell us, about how to deal with the IRS. I thought that was pretty interesting. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, we talked about socks. I wanted to share something with you. I've been pursuing the ultimate recipe for Italian beef. And Italian beef is kind of simple. It's you take a chuck roast, you cut out the fat and the gristle, and you cook it in a Dutch oven, if you will, cast iron pot. And you slow cook it for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. You add some pepperoncini, which would be Italian pickled peppers, a little salt, Himalayan salt, some ground pepper, a little garlic, a little onion, and that's pretty much it. And it's absolutely fabulous. It's kind of like pulled pork, but
I've got to run and get a snack.
It's kind of like, it's the consistency of pulled pork, and it's truly excellent. I'm on version 1.03 of my soon-to-be world-famous recipe for this Italian beef, and it really is great. And it's so good that if you make a red sauce that you might make meatballs with, you can add some of this Italian beef to, the tomato products that you might make what we'll call a spaghetti-type sauce out of if you want to make meatballs. And it makes it even better. So I'm not recommending spaghetti or pasta unless, you want to try the non-gluten pasta. But so I wanted to buy these pepperoncini peppers. They're pickled, and it's very simple. It's kind of like these peppers that come in a jar, and they have some vinegar and a few spices and not much else. So I wanted to buy them in Springfield, and I couldn't find them in the gallon jugs. I went to Sam's Club. I went to the Chinese factory outlet, and they used to have them packaged and prepared by companies called Mount Olive and Vlasic, and for some reason they're not available. And so I found some, but it was a gallon. It was way, way more expensive than it should be. It's probably 50% more. And I said, I'll pass, because I don't even know the name of this company. I've never heard of it. I'm not doing it. So I found a small supermarket on the way home, and I stopped in, and I said, can you get these in gallon jugs in glass? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And I said, okay, so you want me to buy a case of them, right? And they said, yeah, you got to buy a whole case because we don't stock them. I said, great, I'm willing to do that. I'd be delighted to do that. So I ordered a case, and it was supposed to be Vlasic or Mount Olive, and they said, no, I can't do that. A week went by, and they said, it's going to be another brand called Savor, S-A-V-O-R. I looked them up, and they come in glass, and it's an American brand. I thought, that'll be fine. And so a couple weeks go by. Finally, I get them, and they're not Mount Olive, they're not Vlasic, they're not Savor, and they're in a plastic container, plastic gallon jugs, and they're Olympian brand from Greece. I thought, well, it's really not what I wanted, but okay. So I unscrewed the lid, and this is where the medical question comes in. I unscrewed the lid off this plastic jar, a 1 gallon container of pepperoncini peppers, and the lid, the seal looked a little discolored. I thought, wow, so I took a real sharp knife and I cut this aluminized, plastic-sized paper seal, kind of like a cardboard seal, and it looked like the acidity of the vinegar kind of ate through the seal a little bit and kind of corroded it, if you will. I'm trying to use a description that would be applicable to radio. And I thought, I don't want to eat this because it looks like it's an aluminum seal and it's been eaten by the acidity of the vinegar, and now the aluminum is in the vinegar, and I'm not doing it. So I called the supermarket and I said, here's what happened. And by the way, I opened the lid of another one. I didn't cut it open, but it's got the same discoloration. And so actually all 4 gallons had the same corrosion, if you will, on the seals. Would you as a medical doctor be concerned about the consumption of a seal that contains aluminum being eaten by the acidity of a product, the food product? Would you be concerned about that or not, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I'm concerned about everything I buy in a store. I mean, I try to read the labels because most of it is toxic.
Yeah. Well, they took all 4 of them back, and they're trying to find them in gallons for me. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, medical doctor, surgeon of the year, brain surgeon, and we've been talking about all kinds of medicine today. And Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article about a child's age or a person's age. A father's age may have something to do with the children becoming smarter, more ambitious, and less concerned with fitting in. And so I was thinking about that. And what they're saying is it's from dailymail.co.uk, and it says, are you a geek? Your dad's age may be to blame. Sons of older fathers are smarter, more ambitious, and less concerned with fitting in. So the researchers tested geek-like traits, and I don't know if geek is the right term, but that's what they say, in 12-year-old twins in the UK, and they found out that the father's age seems to have some link to the sons being smarter, more ambitious, and less concerned with fitting in. And they think that it could be if the father is older, the father may be more established, the father may have more wherewithal, in the family to help nurture that child. But it seems like the children are have an advantage if their father is older than if their father was younger, and that seems to dovetail with what I would think too. What are your thoughts, Dr. Shealy? You have any thoughts on that?
Well, we know that one particular hormone, DHEA, for most people reaches its normal peak material level at age 25. So, and my feeling in general is that men would do better not to get married before 25 or 26 years of age because they aren't, I think, psychologically, emotionally mature until between 26 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
yeah.
I followed your advice.
Well, I was 26. I think
I was
women
27.
mature a little earlier. They can do it at 23. But I don't think women should get married before age 23.
Well, I literally followed your advice. I didn't know you back then, but Mrs. Finelli and I got married at 27, and I felt that I was not ready to be married before 27. I felt that I was not ready to have a family before 27, and something told me that, and it was right. It was right. So we had our children a little later in life than the average, I guess, who get married younger. And I met a gal who was I guess she was in her 30s, and she had a child very, very, very young. And so she was in her 30s, and her child was out of the house. Had grown up and was out of the house, and this gal was in her 30s, and she said, "Look, I'm still young, and I'm all done. I've had my children. They're out of the house. I'm done. It's great." However, I was thinking, boy, our children are pretty small at the same age that she was, and so I saw the contrast. Now, from her perspective, she just wanted to have a lot of fun, and it was great for her. For us, we had saved some money, and we had a house, and we were paying a mortgage on a house, and living the American dream. And our children were being raised in a traditional 1950s style family, even though it was much later than the 1950s. So I'm in total agreement with you, and I think you're right on. But it's hard for young people to realize that maybe they need to have some accomplishments before they have children, bring children into the world, and be able to afford to have them and raise them. Right? Isn't that really important too? I think it is.
Oh, I agree. The idea of having a child when you're not psychologically and financially ready is, to me, immature. Immature is being kind.
Yeah. This article says older fathers are likely to have more established careers and a higher socioeconomic status than younger fathers, meaning that children may be brought up in a more enriched environments and have access to better schooling. That's what the article, one of the paragraphs said, and I think that's absolutely correct. So, just a thought for those who may be in a position to have children or wait to have children, or maybe a potential grandparent might want to advise their children that maybe wait until late 20s to get married, and make sure that you're able to afford the children, because they are pretty darn expensive, especially if they're thinking about college in the not too distant future. Heck, college is over $100,000 for 4 years, and for the average family, that is a tough nut to crack. And that would be not medical school. That's just 4-year degree. Just a thought there. Dr. Shealy, I was reading another article about extra virgin olive oil, and this is a fascinating article. It says extra virgin olive oil prevents dementia by prompting the brain to clear out harmful debris. And scientists are saying that this is a pretty exciting breakthrough, and the oil is a key ingredient of the Mediterranean diet, which has many health benefits, and you've mentioned that over the years on this broadcast. And it says that the study found that olive oil prompts the brain to remove harmful clutter in the brain, and it decreases the likelihood of getting Alzheimer's.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been okay.
I wouldn't have anything in my house as a cooking oil except that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that would be the extra virgin olive oil. It's
extra
kind of a
virgin,
greenish.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a greenish in color class. And it says the extra virgin olive oil, this is olive oil now, preserves memory and protects the brain against dementia, according to the new research. It says regularly eating olive oil, and they mean extra virgin, can protect your memory and ability to learn new things as you age, according to this study. And class, I can tell you that when I was growing up, visiting my grandmother on my mother's side, salad. There would be a salad with every meal, and the salad had salad dressing on it, and the salad dressing was very, very simple. It was extra virgin olive oil, vinegar, and a small amount of salt. That was it. That was the salad dressing, and it was absolutely delicious. And that was it. I mean, it didn't come out of a jar. It didn't have all kinds of preservatives in it. It was not what you would find in the salad dressing portion of the aisle at the supermarket. It didn't come from there. The olive oil came from a can. It didn't come from a bottle. It came from a can, and you'd use a can opener to open it. And then you'd pour it into it'd be like 4 liters or 3 liters. And it came from Italy. And it was literally extra virgin olive oil in a can. You can sometimes see that in the store, but that's what we ate. And I'll tell you what, my grandmother and my grandfather were sharp as a tack until the day they died. So maybe there's a lot of truth in what Dr. Shealy and I were talking about.
Well, I totally agree. It is, interestingly, there's some confusion in what you see about the so-called Mediterranean diet. My understanding is that although they eat a lot of fish, they do eat chicken fairly frequently, and sometimes lamb. Beef is uncommon, but they have veal. So
I'll tell you what's not common in a lot of Italian diets, and that's pasta. I can tell you that the Mediterranean diet that we had at my grandfather's house, sometimes it would have pasta, but it'd be homemade pasta. It would be the pasta noodles, or if it were ravioli, it'd be handmade. It did not come out of a box. It was not extruded. It was literally, the noodles were handmade, the ricotta cheese, all of that was made by hand. And the vegetables were grown in the garden, and there would be tomatoes, and there'd be onions, and there'd black olives, and extra virgin olive oil, and some red wine vinegar was typically the vinegar of choice, but not a lot of pasta, and not a lot of sweets. Now, if there was something to snack on, it would be in the nut bowl, in the center of the dining room table or the kitchen table. You could have some nuts. And in the nut bowl were a bunch of nut crackers. You would crack the nuts open. So they came in their own wrappers. The nuts came in their own wrappers, and there were almonds and filberts and so walnuts. But that, if you wanted to snack, that was it. You didn't find much candy in my grandparents' house, nor in my house when I was growing up. Sugar was at a minimum, absolute minimum.
Well, that is the healthiest diet on earth.
Okay. And so does that help with the nervous system as well, Dr. Shealy? This, we'll call it Mediterranean diet?
Right. It helps with the heart and the pancreas and the brain. That means the body as a whole, really.
I have a question from one of our class members about sinus drip. What do we do about sinus drip down the back of the throat causing a cough? Is there a recommendation that you have?
That's a weakness of the immune system. And to me, that means you need certain things. Vitamin D3, vitamin K2, vitamin C, astaxanthin for vitamin A, and vitamin E. The vast majority of allergies will be controlled if people take adequate of those supplements.
Okay, and what about a yogurt to stimulate the immune system?
Well, of course, I love yogurt.
Class, if you'd like to get the same free newsletter that I get, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Just go there to the website, and you can sign up. No cost, no obligation, no salesman will call, and your data is not sold. It's just used to get that newsletter to you, the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week. Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article, and we have talked about this. We've talked about electromagnetic radiation and concerns of different types of fields, electromagnetic fields. And I'm so concerned about it that I decided to again run for the board of directors of the electric co-op and see if I can stop some of the progression of these fields from being all around us. Anyway, a post that I was reading talks about could some of the power tools that we use impact some of the medical devices that people have in their body. So, for example, a pacemaker. And the article goes on to say that if you're going to use a power tool, and they talk about like a drill, a drill that's powered with alternating current, they want you to hold that, keep that at least 6 feet from your body. Well, that's physically impossible. I don't know.
Furthermore, I mean, who's going to measure 6 feet, first of all?
First of all,
So,
his
in other
arm's 6
words,
feet
if you've
long.
got a pacemaker, you don't do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And who has arms 6 feet long? I mean, I don't.
Oh, dear,
So-
an octopus.
Yeah. So so now we're finding out that some of these fields that are developed, generated, I should say, by these electromagnetic devices, and they're talking about, what are they? Well, of course, they're electric drills and welders, and they're saying that there are some risks to pilots because they are in these aluminum tubes. Now, I'm talking about commercial airline pilots, for example. They're in these aluminum tubes, and there's all kinds of electronics in front of them. I mean, they are surrounded. They're like in a microwave oven with lots of different electromagnetic frequencies bombarding them for as long as the flight. And they're saying that people who are electrical engineers are also impacted by this. So, yeah, and it's something that we need to pay attention to, that these devices, not only, if they can interrupt, like a pacemaker, they can certainly interrupt our bodily functions. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who are what I call electromagnetic deficient.
Sensitive.
The
sensitive,
whole
right?
brain system has been short-circuited.
And have you seen that? Have you seen a person who is literally, well, I won't say totally incapacitated, but impacted by electromagnetic radiation? I mean, besides me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't call them dumb phones for nothing.
Yeah. Okay, and let's see. There's another article that I saw that I'd like to talk about, and that was disease by sun sign. Have you found that there is a relationship with certain diseases and the month that a person was born?
I have not found that particular thing, but it's possible because there are certain characteristics of each sign.
In November, for example, they said in this article that males born in the month of November might have heart problems, tumors, chronic skin issues. Women born in November, chronic neck pain, asthma, and tumors as well.
I will look it up.
Yeah.
See what I can find.
Okay, I'll see if I can send you that link. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us. And class, think about that Wi-Fi in your house, the electromagnetic radiation. You might want to turn that Wi-Fi off, unplug it, when you're not using it. If you've got to use it, well, unplug it when you don't have to use it. Think about that. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us, class.
Hey,
Norm
thanks.
Shealy, normshealy.com. He's with us on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.